Speaking of health, also at the GM meetings this week, David Stearns also gave us a update on Starling Marte. The Mets are reportedly confident that the veteran outfielder will not need another groin surgery this offseason after a injury-riddled 2023 regarding constant soreness from his previous groin surgery last year. Marte struggled a lot last season, slashing just 248, 301, 324 with a 76 WRC plus across just 86 games, while unable to go full speed in the batter's box or in the field in 2023 due to after effects of his surgery. Marte will be entering a 35-year-old season and will make $19.5 million in 2024 and 2025, completing a 4-year, $78 million fully guaranteed contract that he signed 2 off seasons ago before the 2022 season.
Listen, I'll believe it when I see it at this point, because we know that Starling Marte, his big thing is, can he stay healthy? A healthy Marte is a very productive player, but if he's banged up, if he's missing time, I mean, it just really stinks with the kind of money that they committed to him, with the fact that he is still on the books for the next season as well. So it definitely is a big concern. That's why if there was any way they could maybe trade him and get some young pieces and maybe take a little bit of the salary, I'd be willing to do that. Like we've said before, I think the Mets do need to really target that corner outfield market this offseason. There are a few quality options that I do like as far as just power bats that they can add to this lineup that also play corner outfield spots. So for me, I feel like it's not worth the risk at this point. I think that, obviously he had the great year the first year. Then even when he was on the field this past season, he wasn't good. So the fact that it's such an unknown. And when you're entering, like we've talked about, that age 35 season, it just gets very tough. Obviously the best years are behind him. And when you get to that age, a guy who relies so much on his athleticism for his talents, for as far as what he does well, it's just hard to see it really translating to the quality play that we want. Not only did you see the dip on offense, but also saw the dip on defense too. It's just a lot of concerning aspects of him. And the fact that it's like, maybe he needs a surgery, maybe he doesn't. I mean, the fact that we're already playing that game and we're not even in 2024 yet, haven't even started spring training or anything like that, it's just a big concern right now. It's something that I really would be trying to see if there's any other options, because it's just not looking good right now. It's just not worth the risk.
Good that the guy's not having, surgery, which is good, because obviously, going on the knife is bad. But this should not be a roadblock for still adding 2 outfielders. Again, Starling Marte needs to be looked at as kind of like what Yoenis Cespedes was looked at in 2020. If he gives us anything, cool. That's a bonus. You need to still add 2 starting caliber outfielders that can hit for power. It can be productive. Let's say when you put the name in the lineup, okay, that's good. But again, if they're seeing him as, hey, he's going to play 140 games and be all-star Marte, that's the Wilpon type thing. I hope David Stearns, again, we trust that he's has a brain, to say, hey, if he's on the field and he's healthy, he can be a good player. But again, the word I can't stand when you build a team, if, and, to go back to Frank, in case of an emergency, I don't want to see DJ Stewart out as the first option. I like DJ Stewart. If DJ Stewart's my 4th or 5th or 6th option in the outfield, I would love him. I don't want him to be, all right, Nemo's good, Jeff McNeil's playing left field, which God help not. But they signed, insert Hunter Renfroe here, Marte's your 3. Boom, Marte's out with an oblique in April. And then here comes DJ Stewart. That's a problem. Or Harrison Bader level of they bring in a 4th outfield. They need to bring in 2 guys who, can see Marte as, if we get anything from him, it's a bonus. But we cannot trust him because, again, age 35, he's always been an injury-prone player, even in his prime, we said it when we signed him. You got to go out and at least still add 2 major league outfielders, and hell, maybe even a 3rd for the bench, because you can't live in a world of ifs, especially with the money that you can have. There shouldn't be ifs, and we're still asking if this goes well. You shouldn't have that with the financial flexibility you have to build a roster. This should not be a need. Again, would you try to move it? Yeah, but again, you're going to have to McCann it. But if this isn't like a James McCann situation where there's still upside in Starling Marte, where there was no upside in James McCann. But if you move him, you try. I don't think there's a lot of teams like just lining up for a 35-year-old Starling Marte, even at let's say $5 million, and you're going to have to give up a sweetener. So at this point, keep him and have him be the highest paid potential fourth outfielder on your depth chart. And then you're going out and let's say it's Teo and Hunter Renfroe in the corners with Nimmo. And then Marte's your fourth outfielder playing around.
I said this in our video that we had about the Mets offseason checklist. As for looking at the outfield, we know we have Nimmo in center field, and that's pretty much it. DJ Stewart is probably the next guy after that. We know Mark Canha's gone. Marte, it's in flux here. What I said in the video was basically that the Mets needed to approach this offseason thinking that the worst is going to happen with Starling Marte, that you're not going to see him for a majority of the season, because he has obviously proven that with his age, with the surgery that he has had. They need to look at it as pretty much just a sunk cost at this point. Just another $20 million a year that you're flushing down the toilet because you have no choice to, because it's a fully guaranteed contract. Do you want to look at this like another Cano? Maybe. But the thing is that you cannot trust this guy to be on the field for 140 games this season. You can't trust him to possibly play more than half of a season right now. I understand that, yes, saying this after one down year or whatever, but again, he is 35 years old. And we have talked about Starling Marte's injury history before. When you get older, those injuries become a lot more substantial as compared to 26-year-old having this groin surgery.
And more frequent.
Yeah, they're going to be more frequent. I mean, you're just putting yourself at high risk in such a premier power position, such as right field as well, that has become extremely valuable in the last few years. It just doesn't seem worth it. Now, if he becomes what we saw him in 2022, fine. But again, that's an if. That is a huge, huge if. And we've talked about this whole back end of the contract being extremely scary, and it's already coming to scary hours in year 2. Obviously, Stearns did not establish that he is going to be the starting right fielder this year. He just said, okay, we are confident that he does not need another surgery. We don't know if he's going to be healthy by spring training. We've already seen 2 spring trainings in a row where he's had injury concerns. Let's not forget that. They're playing on such thin ice right now when we know that they don't have to. Again, like we've talked about it, playing the 26-26, putting all of these chips in one basket for someone who is not as reliable in terms of health, in terms of age. If you get what you expected to get from Starling Marte, fine, but the money should not put him in the lineup whatsoever. I don't want to see them drag him out there on opening day like they did with Robinson Cano. I don't want to see that. I just don't want to see that. If he looks good in spring training, if he looks, like he hasn't completely missed a beat, sure. But we've seen a good enough sample in 2023 as a player who relies on his athleticism a lot. He couldn't use it when he's not going 100%. What value do you have? It's just a deteriorating value. The Mets don't have a deep enough lineup like the Braves where they can have this guy bat 9th and suck so much. They don't have a deep lineup like the Rangers where they have Leoto Taveras or whatever the hell he is, who sucks ass. He's batting 9th and still win a World Series. Josh Rojas or Yohan Rojas, the guy on the Phillies or whatever, they don't have a deep enough lineup for this. I'm not banking on this guy being healthy. The Mets need to approach it like they need 2 outfielders. They need to approach it like Starling Marte is not an option.
The only other thing that I would throw into consideration with Starling Marte is that right now the Mets do not have this no doubt must be your DH kind of power bat on the team right now. So I think if they do get these corner outfielders that we're talking about who do have starting caliber power and are, just good enough in the field, the ability to have Marte DH quite a bit, I think, needs to be on the table just to really make sure that he is at that age that you don't really wear out those legs. Because, again, his defense wasn't all that great this past season anyway. So I think if it helps keep him healthy to where he's able to give you most of what he gave you in the first season offensively, I think it's worth that trade-off since the Mets don't have this no depth. It's better. I'd rather have Starling Marte DH than Daniel Vogelbach, which isn't saying much. But again, it's not like the Mets have this big-time DH that's blocking that scenario from happening some of the time. I think that's another thing that they do need to consider because right now that position's wide open too.
I mean, just because from what I've seen from Starling Marte at 50%, I don't like Starling Marte at 50%. I just don't. Like, yeah. I don't think he is a complete player whatsoever. And he becomes a negative asset to that lineup. And that's the problem is like, yeah, okay, if you're putting him at DH, you're obviously limiting the skill set or whatever. If he's not able to do it, he's not able to do it. But like,
it's also to partially prevent injury because that's the main concern is that if I could keep him healthy enough to where if he's not in the field, at least he's still stealing bases and things like that.
And this is what makes me really catch my breath that we have Nimmo here, because let's not forget a year ago when Billy Epler was here and he said that, you know, we're confident that Marte could play center field. I'm not. Like we've talked about this before, like before even the injuries or whatever. Like, let's be real. I mean, but Nimmo's back now. Obviously, we don't have to worry about that, but it wasn't confirmed that he's going to be the starting right fielder or whatever. But you know how the Mets really like to bank on their internal options and they like to wring it out, the very small focal point until they're completely forced to get rid of him. They held on to Cano for so goddamn long. They held on to Vogelbach. They still got him. They need corner guys who can be DHs. If you want to plug in one from random, Jock Peterson, Teoscar Hernandez. You bring in those two guys, they both can be DHs, they both can be corner outfielders, and they can supplement Marte. Marte could still be in the lineup if he still looks good or whatever, but they need to approach this thinking the worst with Starling Marte at his age, at his health, at everything. And I don't want to see him being the starting right fielder and then everybody behind him, all of them are just minor league players, because that is a huge risk with his health right now. The best good news being that he doesn't need another groin surgery. I mean, he's already had like 3 of them.